Hello. Today we're practicing Jins Hijaz. My name is Sami Abu Shamez, and before we get started, I want to thank those who are supporting me on Patreon. If you're not yet, please follow the link below. If you're able to contribute, you'll help support those who are not able to. The goal of these lessons is to help you learn to embody the different ajnas in Arabic music. The ajnas are the building blocks of maqam. Each one has a specific mood and melodies. And we want to focus on embodiment, listening as much as we are doing with our voices. So let's get started. It's very simple. Just repeat after me. Repeat on my second repeat of each phrase. Ya layli, ya layl, ya layli, ya layl, ya layli, ya layli, ya layl, ya layl, ya layl, ya Ya Layli, 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 Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Layl. Now, if I'm doing something that is a little bit too long for you to catch all of the whole phrase, or there's some details in the middle that you don't quite get, I want to encourage you not to stop yourself in the middle of the phrase. If you do that, you might start to train yourself with bad melodic rhythm. It's more important to get the big picture, starting where I start the phrase, ending where I end, and just trying to get the overall feeling of the melody. The more you repeat those melodies, then you'll start to really get all the details in the middle. Ya Layli, Ya Layl, Ya Layli, Ya Layl, Ya Layli, Ya Layli, Ya Layli, Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Layl, Ya Ya yeah, lily, yeah, lily. So now, can you sing the tonic of what we were just doing? The tonic is the note that melodies resolve to. I'm just going to play one more time. Try see if you can sing the tonic when I'm done playing. Go ahead. Right, that's the tonic. You can tell if I end a phrase like this. On this note, it's unresolved, it wants to resolve. And if I end here, this note is also unresolved, it wants to resolve up. So that's how we tell the tonic. Now, I use a numbering system, but the numbers I want you to think of in terms of their identities. If we call it 1, it's always the note of resolution. This is 1. Now there's another note that's important too. See if you can hear that. Another note that melodies emphasize a lot. Go ahead, sing the other note. Now that note is called the ghammaz. In this case, it is the 4th note of the scale. Let's count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might have heard that ghammaz as the tonic the first time around. If you do, that's totally fine. Sometimes it takes some time to get used to which is which in these ajnas, and each one the feeling is a little bit different. In any case, this is what we would call a 4-note jins because of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, before we do melodies emphasizing each scale degree, let's focus a little bit on the intervals. Now, I can tell you a description of what the intervals are like, and you can know them intellectually, but this is what we mean by embodiment. You want to really get the feeling of the intervals in your voice and or on your instrument, and both if you're an instrumentalist. So let's start. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. 2, 3, 2. 2, 3, 2. 3, 4, 3. 3, 4, 3. 4, 5, 4. 4, 5, 4. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You notice that the interval between 2 and 3, 2, 3, is much bigger than either the interval between 1 and 2. 1, 2. That's a close interval, close to what would be called a half step in Western music. This is the biggest interval that we have in Arabic music, between any 2 notes in the scale. And it also occurs in Jins Hijaz, which we'll get to in another lesson. For that reason, it's very common for people to confuse Jins Hijaz and Jins Hijaz, but again, we'll get into that. The important thing is where the tonic is. If this big interval is between 2 and 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, then we're in Jins Hijaz. Again, if you are a vocalist, you want to try this with different vowel sounds. E, 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 O, O, O. And if you're an instrumentalist, experiment with different fingerings in order to train yourself to really isolate muscle memory and muscle control from the sound. instead of. So those are the intervals. And now let's focus on melodies that emphasize each scale degree and be conscious of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layli, ya Layl. 4. You notice, as we said before, 4 feels like a very stable note, and it's a very important opening note in this jins. Ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layli, ya Layl. Ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl. That's 2, 3, 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. And a lot of songs in Hijaz emphasize that fourth scale degree. One of the most famous Syrian and Iraqi ones. Fog in Nachal, fog. 1, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4. So you want to start to use songs. Make sure you listen to Fog in Nachal. Hali Hal from Syria. Hali, Hali, Hal, belly, belly, bell, belly, belly, bell. Hali, Hali, Hal. 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Those are two great examples. Now let's do melodies that focus on the third scale degree, and you can feel the instability here. With each number, I want you to really have a feeling of tension associated with it. You want to feel this. Sing that note. What's interesting about Hijaz is you have one note that feels like it wants to resolve up, 3, 4, and one note that wants to resolve down, 2, 1. Sing that with me. 3, 4, 2, 1, 3. So now let's do some melodies that emphasize 3. Ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl. That one had the resolution 3, 4 at the end. Ya Layli, ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layli. 3. And let's emphasize 2 now. Ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layli, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl. And this 4, 3, 2 melody is very popular in Hijaz because it gives you that real feeling of suspension of this 2 resolving down to 1. Ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layl, ya Layli, ya Layli, resolving to 1. Ya Layl, ya Layl, resolving on 1. 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 1. 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 1. Now, why did I say 7 and 6? Those are the notes under the 1. The tonic, 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. Because if this were a scale, those would be the notes under the octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 1. Now, the Jins doesn't use the full scale, as I said. The main area with traditional theory is 1, 2, 3, 4. But we've seen that a lot of melodies use notes around that. This note is the note under the tonic. Ya Layl. 7, 2, lot of melodies use notes above the tonic in Hijaz, above the Ghammaz. 5. We did a lot of melodies. A very common melody in Hijaz that's outside the traditional span. So this is why I critique the traditional theory. We hear that this is part of Jins Hijaz. And you hear this resolution of 5, 4. You hear 4 is the more stable note, that's why it's the Ghammaz, and 5 is a note of suspension. I sometimes refer to this as Husseini, as the Husseini note with this resolution, which we'll talk more about with Maqam Bayati. In any case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4. So that's a picture of Hijaz using several different methods of practicing. We first practice the basic melodies. We identify the tonic and the Ghammaz and the scale degrees. We do training on intervals, interval training, not like exercise, but training these different sizes, getting them embodied in our voice and our instruments. And we use melodies to help us identify the scale degrees. And using popular song melodies is a really great method that I want to encourage you to spend a lot of time learning these melodies. I gave you 2 examples, Hali Hal, Fog and Nakhal. Hijaz is one of the most common ajnas across all of Arabic music. So you're going to hear it everywhere. You want to listen for it, but also listen for songs. So go to maqamworld.com. And I'm going to put the link below to the Jins Hijaz page. There's a bunch of examples of different songs using the Jins. Listen to those samples, but then make sure you listen to the whole song. You want to hear how the Jins comes in and out. There's also some examples on my website, maqamlessons.com. And in the book, which you can see behind me, that I wrote with Johnny Fadraj, the creator of Maqam World, Jins Hijaz is one of the main ajnas covered in chapter 14, so you can check that out for some more description. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is note names. And some of you are probably annoyed at me at this point. I didn't tell you what note we're on. I forced you to identify the tonic. And the Ghammaz. Now this is C, and this is F. Right now we're doing Hijaz on C. Hijaz on D is the more typical one for a lot of instrumentalists to learn, but you'll find that a lot of singers will prefer Hijaz on C because it's a little bit lower, especially when you get to the higher part of the maqam. So I'm doing this in part to force you to get out of your comfort zone if you're an instrumentalist, or even if you're thinking about note names, because I find that you get a better picture of the maqam if you're able to focus on relative position rather than absolute note names. And I don't want you to be focused on those note names. I want you to be focused on embodying the relative sounds in your voice, even if you're an instrumentalist. So I'll give you a quick taste of what that would be like on other keys. And if you support me on Patreon, you'll find that there are some more free videos there doing what we already did to explore the full Jins. So that was Hijaz on C, Hijaz on D, very common. Yeah, nee, nee, yeah, nee, nee, yeah, lee, yeah, lee, yeah, lee, lee, yeah, lee, lee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. Another nice one, Hijaz on G. You're going to find this a lot in a lot of instrumental pieces. It's also common when Hijaz is the second Jins. G, A flat, B natural, C. Now that isn't the same A flat on the piano. It's not the same B natural on the piano. You have to listen for it. Ah. Let's do the interval exercise on this one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. And a great example where you might hear this is when people sing Ghanili Shwaya, which we covered in the Jins Rust lesson, which is on Rust. The secondary Jins Hijaz. لا أغني وأقول الطير من بدري صباح الخير. لا أغني وأقول الطير من بدري صباح الخير. والجمر مع الخدير ويايا يردوا عليا. So that's the Hijaz part of Ghanili Shwaya. It eventually resolved down to Rust on that note, but we'll talk about those Maqam relationships a little bit later. In any case, thank you for listening. Go back, repeat everything as much as you like. Please support me on Patreon, where you'll see more new lessons. The link is below. And good luck in your studies.